Hey guys, no messing around today, we're jumping straight to work. I didn't have time to record an introduction to this before, so we're just jumping straight in. Now, this case I'm using, the 904, it's actually two pieces, an inner steel case that everything mounts to, and then an outside hoop. This is that hoop there, it's very pretty, and some build in the future I might actually use just this hoop and build something around it, but basically what I needed to show y'all is this part here. I have to cut a hole for the power supply because it's not going to get any air or just rob air from the rest of the case if it's sitting normally with the fan on the top. I need it to pull from the bottom from clean air. Now there's probably a lot of really lovely tidy ways to go about doing this, cutting this hole out, but I was in a hurry and honestly this part's not really going to get seen anyway. It's going to be covered up by the power supply and the bottom is not exposed, it's tucked away, so I just went ham at it with a grinder. And yeah, I probably wasn't wearing enough safety equipment. I kept getting sparks flying all over me, which is not really that big a deal, but it does kind of suck. And I was wearing glasses instead of safety glasses, but don't worry about the details there. But I just went ham at it with the grinder and then filed off any really rough edges with the file so I wouldn't cut myself. But it's pretty simple, straightforward here. The next thing I had to go after was the back panel. Now this is cut out of acrylic and it's pretty dense stuff and it's kind of hard to cut because it likes to chip really badly. So I went ahead and drew out my design that I needed to cut out, and I did that with a high-speed rotary tool, and then all the little marks where the tape are, those are all holes that I need to screw, well, drill through, not screw through. And I did that to limit chip out so it wouldn't break when I pushed through the other side with the drill bit. And this is me going at it with the rotary tool. Now this tool is not ideal for the job. It made kind of a rough cut and it really sent shavings absolutely everywhere, which is more a property of acrylic really, but that's beside the point. The cut was not very clean and I ended up having to sand it and file it to be smooth and round. Now most of it got covered up by the fans of the radiator anyway, so it didn't matter that much, but it did kind of bug me inside knowing that it was covered up but it still didn't look all that great. The ideal tool here would have been using a high quality scroll saw. Now I have a scroll saw, but it's not exactly high quality. I tried to use it and it was really just burning the acrylic. It didn't really make any clean cuts. But using this tool worked okay, but as I said, it really does send shavings absolutely everywhere. They're probably in 10-15 feet in every direction there are shavings. Took me forever to clean it up with a shop vac. So here's my least favorite part of the project, messing with the power supply. Now, don't open the power supply unless you know what you're doing, and you gotta do it because it's just overall generally a bad idea. You're likely to mess up your computer, and messing with your power supply is the one thing that if you put a bad power supply in a good computer, it's the one thing that can literally destroy everything else in your computer. And that besides, it has enough capacity to kill you inside there. Those capacitors hold charges for a long time, potentially, I mean, hours even after. And even then, some of them can still hold a charge, potentially. So you want to play it safe, always discharge capacitors, do all the safety stuff, and if you don't know what you're doing, just don't screw with it. But as you can see in the pictures here, I didn't do things the smart way. I just lopped off the whole braid and decided to just start chopping away the things I didn't need. Now, ended up with a really, really clean final product, which I'm satisfied with, but it was a lot of work. I probably spent 20 hours, well, probably closer to 15 to 20 hours just screwing with the power supply. And even after I pulled it apart, I kept testing it. That's what you're seeing in this picture right here. I kept testing it with jumpers to make sure it would still turn on, and it still worked. But basically what I did is I lopped off the braid, and I removed all the connectors, and I removed all the cables that I didn't need. These cables you're seeing on the screen are the only cables that I needed in my case, and one Molex connector that I had to add. But I manufactured the hard drive cables and the GPU cables because the way they were done originally just weren't quite to my standards. I didn't quite like that. So this is me making the GPU cable, or pardon me, the hard drive cable. I actually mounted the hard drives in the computer and then measured the cable directly to know exactly how long it needed to be, cut it, sleeved it, and manufactured the cable that way. And then I sleeved all the rest of the cables. Now, this part right here, this is me soldering the motherboard connector back on and the rest of the cables. Now, I recommend testing this thing every step of the way, double checking all of your solder connections and all of your heat shrink just to make sure it's all perfect, because you really don't want to go back at this point. Now this is the power supply all finished with everything except for the top case on. I did test it, it works. Make sure again, test to make sure it works. But you'll notice 2 of those cables have silver braids on them. Now, what that is, that's actually stainless steel braid that came off of, believe it or not, washer and dryer hose. But that's on the GPU cables because they're the most exposed cables, and I think they look they're the part that you see the most. I really liked the look I got out of that. Now, this is the power supply all finished, getting ready to put in the case. The only thing left that I had to do is that I have to really assemble everything, and then of course do the typical water cooling things and add in the water and put in the tubing, and everything worked. I mean, I didn't even test it after that. I took it to QuakeCon and ran it, and everything worked flawlessly. But you'll get to see the pictures in the end, and I'll also tell you the entire list of things I did because not everything was shown on film.